Right. Welcome, everyone, to the third episode of Field to Future's Cultivated Conversations video podcast. These quarterly discussions will explore topics at the intersection of agriculture, land and resource management, technology and innovation, while digging into industry impacts and challenges and opportunities. I am one of your co-hosts today, Leticia Hernandez, and I work for the Center for Land-Based Learning as the farm's alumni and internship assistant manager. Today, I'm so excited to have a co-host joining, Miss Julia Thomas.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julia, and I work at the Center for Land-Based Learning as well. I'm the California Farm Academy alumni assistant manager. So Letty and I are partners in keeping in touch with our alumni from our youth and adult programs. And I just want to start with a quote from one of our legendary Yolo County farmers. Many of you probably know Bruce Rominger. And he said, all farmers are innovating or they're out of business. So today we're talking about innovations that can help farmers stay in business. And we're really excited to welcome our three speakers. I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves, and then we have a lot of questions. If you have any questions from the audience, please put them in the chat and we will get to them as we can. We have a lot of great discussion heading our way today, so thanks so much for joining us. First, can I start off with you, Lynn? Do you mind giving us a brief introduction? And maybe you can talk a little bit more about your favorite weed, bindweed. That's my top two, right off of grass.
Hi, my name is Lynn Cisneski. I'm an assistant professor of weed science at Cornell University. I'm based at Cornell AgTech in Geneva, New York. I work with fruit and vegetable production. I also work with mostly our processing vegetable industry. I am the state extension specialist for weed science. I'm also a former farm advisor from California in the San Joaquin Valley. And my favorite weed is field bindweed. I worked with it when I was at UC Davis in processing tomato production, and it is one of the most resilient weeds. It's fantastic. It exists across so many continents. It can persist through time via seeds that are incredibly dormant and incredibly resistant. And there's so much more we need to learn about it. And that's my favorite species.
Thank you. Yeah, Joanna, I loved what you said about weeds just having to have their virtues discovered. So I think that that's true. Will you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your favorite weed, which I don't know what that plant is. So looking forward to learning more about that.
Sure. That's actually a quote from a weed scientist lecture when I was a grad student at UC Davis, and I always have batted that idea around every time I walk into a field. Making assumptions that what you see in front of you are weeds isn't always true. And so I was trying to decide between psyllium and burdock, because I think both of them are things that can be weeds in certain environments or can sort of take over, especially burdock can be perceived that way, but actually have commercial use in subsets of the culture and in other cultures, which is really cool. And I just have a lot of really beautiful memories of morning harvest with bees flooding the floor of my orchard in Yolo County, all swarming on the psyllium, which is just, it's just like a little plant that grows and is used, the husks are used for fiber. Actually, you can buy it in a health food store. We had a lot of it for whatever reason in the orchard. So I am here from Bonsai. I work in AgTech, and I'm a product manager for the Amiga products. And I'll go into a little bit of the history of the company. And our company that I was previously with, FarmNG, was just acquired by Bonsai. So now we're all one big group together, and we have kind of some exciting things on the horizon. And before that, I was a farmer. And before that, I was also at UC Davis, working there and in grad school. And that's me.
All right, awesome. Mauricio, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, I'm Mauricio Flores. I'm a fourth year undergrad student here at UC Santa Cruz. I'm doing agroecology, and I've been researching agriculture and AgTech specifically for the past going on to 4 years now since I've been here, so that's pretty cool. I think my favorite weed is going to be the dandelion because every part of it is edible, and that's really cool. And it can, break up compacted soils. So yeah.
Cool. I did not know that, but yeah, of course. Dandelion seed, leaf, all of it. Flowers. Very cool. Okay. So we're going to kind of go through the history, the present day, and the future of ag tech. And even though ag tech seems like a modern term, any kind of innovation can be seen as technology. It's been agriculture has been shaped by technology, of course, and that includes throughout history, from indigenous land practices to mechanization. So, Mauricio, we're going to start with you. What is one of the historical or traditional agriculture technology practices that you think still has relevance today, whether indigenous, industrial, or digital?
I think the use of intercropping, and like with the Three Sisters and all that, it can help. I feel like monitor, or it can help technology monitor like the soil nutrient feedback and kind of help it mimic or learn how to mimic those natural nitrogen cycles. And then it's it gives like a ecological template. I feel like for technology, um, it gives it the template, and the technology can be the tool to scale it. So yeah, I think the intercropping systems might. I think yeah, that might be it.
What are some of the systems that you're using at UC Santa Cruz besides the Three Sisters is kind of the classic that a lot of people have heard about, but what are some of the other combinations that you're using that seem like they're beneficial?
Well, I mean, we rotate crops, every season. So, with the intercropping, for example, we'll pair up kale and broccoli. There's not too much intercropping. It's more because a lot of it there's research and stuff like that. But I think just the rotating the crops and doing the cover cropping. And like for example, there was a really cool study. What was it? I think it was last fall, or started in the fall, ended in the winter, and it was rotating cover crop and the timing. So that was one really cool thing that was going on campus. But yeah, I think just rotational cropping is the most is what is most seen on campus.
Cool. Anything you'd like to add to that, Joanna or Lynn?
Sure. I was thinking about scouting, really, and that being something that you always do in agricultural systems and any systems that you manage. And we've done it forever, and we've come up with more advanced ways to do it now. I know that being able to be in an operation that you manage and step back and observe it and try to make sense of the different processes that you see unfolding and having a way to think about and organize that information is really fundamental to being able to farm from an ecological perspective to me. And so that's one of the things I'm most excited about seeing us get better at over time, and in ways that can help us make really good decisions that reduce input use, just fundamentally change the way we interact with these ecosystems. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw out hand weeding. It's probably the first weed control practice we engaged in, and we still do it now. Despite our innovations, whether it's cultural or chemical, we're still hand weeding. And I think it's important because the innovations we're looking at today, our mechanization is purposely trying to mimic hand weeding. We are trying to mimic crop weed discrimination and then selective elimination of weeds to try and minimize those competitive interactions. So yeah, that's true in the past, and the premise of this site-specific weed management is true going forward.
Actually, to add on to that, here on campus, we still actually do hand weeding. It's one of the first things we learn. And they show us, what Lynn mentioned, the selective, you select the right things and they teach you all that from the start. It's like one of the first classes. It's really cool. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, it can help, like she said, like the technology can help mimic what we do. So yeah, I think that's a cool little tie to the technology and the use of it.
Yeah, there's even a tool called a finger weeder now. Like I was just looking at an implement that is called a finger weeder. And so it's like, yeah, that's a tool that's trying to mimic our fingers. Did you have something to add, Lynn?
No, sorry. Like someone's been texting me and I'm just like trying to get them to stop.
Okay. Couple more minutes on this section, Letty?
I think we can probably move on.
Okay.
Be a little
move on to the present.
Yes. So present day technology. I know everyone in this discussion is very well versed on their own ways. Lynn, we would like to start with you, if that's okay. First question being, what's one ag tech innovation you're most excited about right now and why?
Yeah, so for me, I'm a technology geek. I'm kind of throwing a lot of my research behind it. Again, I work with like some of the largest of our vegetable producers in New York, and they are really focused on our precision technologies, our precision weed control. So anything that is kind of machine vision based, where we're having a really focused, really selective weed control. So, I am excited about the laser weeders. I am excited about, the precision sprayers or the precision cultivators that allow us to have this very hyper specific site, based weed management. Again, these are the tools that are kind of mimicking our first and oldest weed control practice, which is hand weeding, and the ability of the human mind, to see something that doesn't belong and then to remove it, but to kind of maybe take humans out of the most arduous work, and possibly can, technology take that forward.
Awesome. And Joanna, same question for you.
Well, I agree with all of that. And I would say the combination of those technologies with what I'm probably most excited about, which is why I work on Amigas, is the ability to move away from really large form factor equipment in the field and move into smaller form factors as we get better at precision tasks and know how to manage that. Being able to work with machines that are not around like optimizing like one person sitting on a tractor for a large number of hours, but rather like maybe working with the intelligence of the people who are managing the system, but could be like multiple machines in the field doing different tasks that are more scale appropriate. And doing that with like electric drivetrain is even more amazing, although it doesn't just have to be that way. So I think about the whole system impacts in terms of soil compaction, in terms of just humans working around the machines and safety and ergonomics. And to me, it feels like game-changing. It just changes how we think about how agriculture at every scale gets done. So that's what I'm really excited about right now.
Absolutely. Perfect. And Mauricio, what is exciting you right now in your work?
I think to me, I think just the whole technology that's coming out, around the weeding, just because, when we farmed strawberries, one of the major issues was like people didn't want to stay longer hours to weed. So seeing the new advancements, like for example, like Triangle Farms, there was like a study with them, and how much time they saved implementing the single was it the single row crop cultivate or weeder. um that was really cool to just see like the real numbers in front and seeing how much it's actually helped instead of just them telling us like, hey, this really helps. So seeing like the numbers was really cool. And then for example, like with the Amiga, just how modular it is. Like for example, a couple months ago we were using it with the A&J knives and the finger weeders as well. And then now we mounted a propane tank in the back. We're doing flame weeding, and that's really cool. And just seeing all these like innovations with weeding specifically has been really cool. And broccoli harvesting is the other one that I really like. I was with Church Brothers this summer, and they were trying to get their machine to work, like the camera specifically, and just seeing how they have to tweak everything and like actually take everything else into account. Like it's a 3-time harvest or something. I forget if specifically what it's called, but you can get 3 different products out of the broccoli for so you can get the florets, you can get the bigger heads and stuff like that. And because there are so many leaves around it, they have to move certain things around, and it's really cool just seeing them work on it and problem solve. So yeah, broccoli harvesting and weeding, I feel like is the most exciting for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in the same region as Mauricio, and so broccoli is abundant here. But I remember years ago when broccoli was not even, being considered for automation. And so it's great to hear that is absolutely exciting for sure, because broccoli is very labor intensive for harvesting. All right. So Mauricio, AgTech can be celebrated for efficiency, but also criticized for equity and excess. How do you see these tensions playing out?
I do think that problem's kind of narrowing down a bit, thankfully. Like, before in other years, I presented the Amiga and our project in Fresno with Daryl Wong, if you remember who he is, Leticia, if you guys know him. So I presented that in Fresno, and the main thing that the farmers were asking me was, um, how much does it cost? And I think at the time it was like, if I'm not mistaken, around 20 or closer to 20. Um, and when I told them that Nathan, somebody else that was there before, when he told me that the price was going to go down a little bit, they were super excited about that. But now, like for example, the single, what was it called? The single row cultivator that Triangle Farms was using it came down to like I think 400,000, which before those were all over $1 million. So I think with the technology that's the new advancements that have been coming out, the uh, accessibility is getting there, and then just these new training programs have helped. I feel like, but there's still a long way to go.
Oh no.
I don't know. There's a touchy subject there, just depending on your experiences with people. Like here we have, like for example, Alba, and all these training programs that can get you access to it. So it's more accessible through those. But if you're a farmer that's just on your own, it's less accessible. You're a smaller farmer, you're not making as much. So I guess to me it just depends on where you're at. I don't know if that was good enough. Yeah.
You're just breaking up a tad bit, Mauricio, but I think we all heard you. Joanna, can you share a little bit more on that same topic? I know you're doing different forms, supporting small and large.
Yeah, Mauricio, that was really good to hear your experience with the Amiga, and that sort of tracks with my experience and why I got involved. I feel that's true not only of the Amiga sort of physical AI product platforms that we have, but also the overall approach that Bonsai has to the way we do AgTech, which is to choose technologies that are actually the more affordable and more sort of field-ready technologies that will be easier for growers to adopt. So that's how we've thought about like our vision-based systems and in foregoing some of the more expensive sensors to make it an easier entry point for a lot of growers. And also with these smaller platforms, it's definitely more affordable and scalable to growers who are operating all different kinds of farms, from like little 1 acre to 5 acre market gardens to much larger farms. I think we sort of fit in everywhere and hope to be affordable at every scale. And I think from an access perspective, it's really cool to see, for me, as a person who's been a small grower in the past, more machines that are really designed to also work in the kind of environments that I've worked in, and do a great job at the tasks that usually you have much bigger pieces of equipment to do, like the precision weeding, finger weeding, like all the different technologies. Like we're having spray technology come onto the Amigas now, and automating mowing, and like all the jobs that I had to do that very often at my scale, I was somewhere in between doing it manually and doing it mechanically, depending on the job. Now I feel like the Amiga can solve a lot of those challenges for growers at in an affordable way. So I don't know. I think we're on the same page there, and it's pretty exciting to be part of a company that puts that first. So.
Awesome. Lynn, do you have anything to add?
I think, there's definitely an issue with a lot of our, the technology being focused for the biggest of the big. It's expensive, and it does limit access, for who can use it. And I think that is an issue. I do have this hope that technology trickles down, is that as the technology proves to be effective, more people come online, more companies come online, and that we have units that are more accessible. I also have a beef with companies, is because they are very California centric. They are California and Western US centric, and their tools and their technologies work there, but they don't translate necessarily to the East Coast very well. I worked with one machine-based system, and it didn't know common ragweed, because common ragweed is not a problem in the Western US, and it was missing common ragweed. Its algorithms, it didn't know. Was it a crop? Was it a weed? We ultimately trained the system to know what it is. I like the idea of smaller robots. They might work in California, but we have slope, and a lot of the drivetrains cannot handle the slope. Or we have rocks, and I have worked with some small robots, and they get turned by rocks. They get off their path because of our glaciated soils. And I think there's this is my concern, is that there's a lot of companies that kind of they get to California, and I understand why. I'm part of California Ag, and I love California Ag, but then we try to make the jump to the East Coast, and there's new learning hurdles to making something operational here. So a lot of what I'm trying to do is try to, like, hey, you need to come and test here. You really need to understand other production systems, because there's a lot of the US that wants the technology but needs the tools, and the companies need to understand we have very different environments.
Awesome. It looks like we have some questions in the chat. And I'm not sure if anyone wants to answer this one. It says, how is AgTech changing the kinds of employees farms need to hire?
I will throw it out there, is that I don't know how it's changing the technology, who's being hired, but I know it's changing the conversation around hiring and what workforce development is going to look like, at least for us. That the person that we're going to be hiring is going to need to have a lot of diverse skills. Is that maybe you're going to need to know be a very good mechanic, and you need to know farm equipment operation, but you're probably going to need to know programming to a certain extent. You're going to have to be able to work your way around a computer system, around electronics and electric systems. You're going to have to understand data and data management more. And we've been having these conversations, you know, in New York, is how do we start to bring this online, because there can be a learning hurdle with some of the technology, and how do we help growers and who's working for them overcome that, so we can facilitate the adoption and make the technology more accessible.
Absolutely. And Mauricio, as a current student, how do you make yourself more competitive for future employment in AgTech?
Well, I think I'll start with, so from what I've seen, you know, when I've been at like Diorigo and other farms and just asking them about the employment, I think the hard laborers are, you know, being downsized. So it's like a crew can be cut from 20 to 10, and it's a less intensive job. But then, you know, like Lynn mentioned, like you need a very good mechanic, and then you also need people that are specialized in that or can be trained in that. But then going on to like higher education, and like myself, that I'm about to graduate and kind of look for a job, I think there's a lot of space for uh, innovation applications, like people that can help companies do that. You know, because a lot of people, like they have the misconception. For example, like here, some of my friends like, how are you gonna get a job in ag tech if you're not an engineer? Like, okay, those people are doing that, but then there's other people trying to help the companies apply and finding technologies and do research with it. So I don't have to be an engineer. I can be doing the research with that, you know? Um, so I think there's a lot of jobs opening in that area from what I've seen. Just that, you know, Church Brothers this summer, they were really interested in people that were going to try and test those machines out. So, you know, I don't want to jinx it, knock on wood. I think I'd be fine now. But the job market is getting more intense, especially with ag tech. It's increasing. You know, people's interests are becoming increasingly just more grown. So, yeah, I think there's a lot. There's going to be a good amount of opportunities for now. Hopefully.
Awesome. Thank you
Can I
for
jump
sharing.
in on that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I just want to echo what you just said, because as a non-engineer working at a Silicon Valley ag tech startup in a crowded field of many others like us who are trying to figure out how to make solutions that actually work for growers, knowing what needs to happen in the field, understanding the agronomy and being able to just understand the job that needs to be done and how to work with the current systems growers are using to get those jobs done, and with the current employees that growers are so dependent on to like make the whole system work. That kind of knowledge is irreplaceable. And so the people who have it are actually really critical to ag tech working well for growers. And so I feel like that's one of the reasons why I said yes to doing this podcast, is because I just want to explain how important it is for that kind of knowledge to be a part of the conversation in ag tech, and how much richer and more effective the solutions will be when that's the case. And I feel like that's definitely a value that we have here at Bonsai, and that's why I work here, and other folks who have a lot of deep ag experience work here. And I want to see that be the case with everybody in the industry. And that just means us being in conversation more with the people who have that kind of knowledge and making it clear that there are opportunities and that it's really valuable. So.
Can I say one more thing? One thing I've been harping on is like a lot of the companies are very engineer, like Mauricio said, they are engineer heavy and they are very agronomist light. And sometimes I wonder, some companies are out there with hammers looking for nails. And that might explain the companies that don't persist in the sector. I would really love to see companies hire more agronomists. I'd like to see them. I want them to engage with growers, because I want them to understand, and I want growers involved in the process of evaluating technology and helping drive technology for their needs. One thing I don't want to see is I don't want to see growers become R&D arms, where suddenly growers are taking on an inordinate amount of the activity, and the responsibility. for the technology. And I do think that can be solved with bridging and bringing more previous farmers and more students from agronomy into that sector, into those companies to help everything to go more smoothly. And I think it could help the companies themselves, with their market penetration, if they're not that don't put as much emphasis on the tech component, kind of elevate the agronomy component and the biology component and the skills that those people need. And I think also, if we are going to see these job shifts in the agricultural community, those people are the ones who know the job the best, and really bringing them on board, hiring them and leveraging their skills and their knowledge base to make the technology better.
Awesome, thank you. And that kind of touches on our last question in this segment. Who, from your guys' perspective, who is benefiting from the current ag tech? Obviously engineers are having their light for sure, but who can we uplift and who's being left behind? And I'll just throw it in the center. Who wants to answer it?
I mean, I can throw. I think if we start thinking of some of the biggest names in the space, yeah, we're probably talking that larger operations, capital, and connectivity, are probably benefiting the most currently. I do think there are options for smaller, diversified farms, for growers that are more resource limited. And I think we need to have better access and better ability to for me to be able to highlight some of those tools. Again, I need to make sure some of the technology actually works for my growers and our East Coast systems. That's why I go to FIRA, and I spend a lot of time emailing companies like, please come talk to me. Please come talk to me. I have growers interested. I want to help them, and that can help you.
I want to piggyback on that, because actually what you just said is probably where I would have started in answering that question. Just trying to figure out how to frame it. I think very much about the fact that we are creating autonomous systems that are vision-based, and in order for those Amigas or other tractors that rely on our bonsai-enabled autonomy to really work well in the field, there's training, there's data collection, it's vision-based, and the environments do change, and it really does matter. So the more we can be doing data collection in diversified growing environments, different bioregions, the better and more inclusive we're going to be in terms of where we can reach with these technologies. And so I have this vision of getting a lot of Amigas out into the world so that there can be just this incredible training effort to make all of these environments places that are optimized for these kinds of technologies, which is one of the reasons why it's so important that it's relatively affordable, because ultimately the success for us, but the success more broadly, will be in being able to sort of reach into many different environments, not just the first ones that are easiest for us to access as a company. And so I sort of have this sort of call to people, be willing to embrace it, be willing to be curious about it, and be willing to partner with us in the efforts to sort of train in these environments so that the tools will work for everybody. And that's our vision as a company. Certainly we have to start Bonsai started in almonds because that was the toughest environment to work in. And they thought if we could nail that, we can sort of go anywhere. And now we're trying to go everywhere else progressively, but we need partners and growers to do that work with us. So.
Thank you. And Mauricio, did you have something to add before I hand it off back to Julian?
Well, I think they went right over it. Yeah.
All right. And I see you, Jim, raising your hand. Would you like to unmute? It looks like you might have a question. Thank you for being here. Oh, we cannot hear you, sir.
We can't hear you.
Oh, we still can't.
I think you're still muted, or your system isn't working, Jim.
I think his question's in the chat.
Oh, is that the
Yeah.
question about the like the regulatory environment? So I'm gonna answer or talk about this, because this is actually a huge thing that I've been having conversations with, maybe a different area, like with the EPA. This is I think a concern, and maybe this falls in the future of AgTech, is our technology is advancing so much faster than our regulatory environment is. And whether that is OSHA, whether that is the EPA, we're coming to a head at this. And Joanna can probably speak more closely about California's current regulatory environment with autonomous vehicles. I personally have been talking with the EPA, like, hey, our labels don't allow us to use this see and spray technology as effectively as it could. And even if we get a label for see and spray technology, every see and spray system could be different. And so you might need different labeling for different, if you have the John Deere versus the Eco Robotics versus the Verdant. And those are things that we need to be thinking about. But I have talked to New York officials, Farm Bureau members, some of our folks who go to Albany and say, we need to be talking about autonomous vehicles. We need to talk about how we are going, how is this going to be regulated? Is it going to be regulated? Because we don't want to stifle our agricultural sector. We want safety, but we don't want unnecessary barriers. And then the other thing is we also have to be thinking about connectivity. We have to think about our cellular service in our rural communities. We need to be thinking about infrastructure. We need to be thinking about broadband. There is so much technology needs, and we're lagging behind from a regulatory standpoint.
Yeah, I think for the California, I saw that. It was really interesting because I was like, I feel like there's so much autonomy going on. But I think there was a revision or a statement from the Cal OSHA people. If it wasn't this year, it was last year. And I think what they had said was you can use it while there are no workers present. Um, which can gives you a little bit of room to work there. But for example, like the weeding usually is done after hours anyways, half the time, or from my experience, there's usually crews that go after the harvesting is done to the other parts that haven't been harvested. Or for the spraying, you can't spray when there's workers present anyways. So I think that helps a little bit, just like, okay, we can use the autonomous tractors, just not with workers. And it makes sense. You don't want to use machines around people anyways, just because of the danger zone that's there. So yeah, I don't know if that answers Jim's question at all, but there was a revision and they clarified if there are no workers present, you can use it.
Yeah, I would just echo what both of you said, and to say that clearly this is always the challenge when we're in this huge, fast-moving technological advance, that regulations were written without all of this in mind. And now we're showing what's possible, and we have to figure out what's the right way to keep all of us in worker safety in the environment. And I'll speak as a grower in my grower experience, but also with everybody that we work with. People want to know that autonomy is safe for their operation. And if they don't have real strong confidence that it is, then they're not going to adopt the technology. And so everything that we do has to be like 99% or higher on the safety level. And we can't have people around. We can't, like, these systems need to work in ways that make people have really high confidence that it's going to do the job, it's going to protect the crop, and it's going to protect everybody in the environment. And so the companies who are working on the solutions are aiming for that, because that's what gets adoption. And I think, like, there are a lot of smart people who are working on the regulatory picture and task force and weighing in on how all this will happen. And I'm not in that part of the business, and I'm not in any of those conversations formally, but I do feel that there's a recognition that it's time to start responding to the technologies that are here and emerging and that growers want to adopt. So.
Yes.
I think just from a technology standpoint, particularly, and I'll just go to autonomy, is that I think this could open up a lot. And I think for us from weed control is, I think autonomy could actually allow us to take advantage of some biology and ecology. Again, one thing that's in my mind that I've been wanting to try with some of our autonomous tools is night cultivation. There was work that was done, to formally test the night cultivation. There was work that was done showing that some species don't germinate as well, when they aren't exposed to a light environment. Well, if machines can work, in the dark safely, could we maybe get a bump by, kind of leveraging this kind of biological response? And I think, looking at that with night cultivation, do we see less moisture loss with the soil if we're using night cultivation? I'm thinking, like, there's a lot that could be opened up by new tools, but need, again, like Joanna Mauricio said, not wanting to be constrained by us, not thinking ahead, or the sector not thinking ahead far enough about how this could be limited by regulations. Not saying no regulations, saying, thoughtful regulations that optimizes technology.
Because there's an argument to be made that these kinds of technologies really will contribute highly to worker safety and worker well-being, and being able to sort of make everybody who's working in the field more effective, more safe at their jobs, and shift away from some of the kinds of jobs that, like the crews that need to spray at night in the field, those are really difficult jobs. If we can change the way that the workers are interacting with that system so that they don't have to be in the most dangerous or difficult part of that job, then to me that's a win. And I think we should figure out the solutions to enable that from a policy perspective. So I think we're getting there. It's just a process.
Great segue to our final segment. And I see, Sarah, you have a question, and Elizabeth, I definitely want to give you a little opportunity at the end to plug the CAF Small Farm Tech Expo. Thank you for that reminder, because I knew that it was coming up and didn't think about mentioning it. So glad you're here. We'll give you a chance at the end. So Sarah, I know your question, I know that Joanna is passionate about this topic, and we'll get to that. So this is about the type of scale and size of farm that, well, specifically Bonsai and the Amiga and you, Joanna, are working toward. So making sure that everyone is well represented. So that's the question that Sarah has. So we will specifically get to that as part of this kind of future segment. So Joanna, if you could design the future of ag tech, what would it look like in 20 years? What would it look like in 20 years?
Great question. If I could continue to drop my small opinions into the big pool of what the future of ag tech looks like, I would say that from my experience as a grower, I was always in this cycle of trying to monitor and then manage, and then monitor and manage. I say this all the time. I feel like that's fundamentally what it means to step as a human being in an ecosystem, into an ecosystem. and, attempt to play your role. And I also know that I never had enough hours in the day, nor does anybody who works in agriculture ever have enough hours in the day to fully do that job well. And so if I think about the future of agriculture, I imagine a whole diversity of solutions that make it possible for people to use what they are learning about the environment that they're growing in to more effectively manage it. And that sounds really simple, but it's actually the most complicated thing in ag in many ways, because sometimes you're just so busy trying to get the crop harvested and get this other piece done and deal with that compliance issue or whatever, that to manage well and manage really, you choose sustainably, regeneratively, ecologically, or even just profitably is very, very difficult for almost everybody who's in ag right now. And I want better tools. I want better tools for the job. I want to make it easier and more reliable and more efficient to just be able to take the things that you're learning in your field and translate that into a system of operations, that some of which you get automated support to help, some of which you have crews working in more closely. And the whole system sort of works together. I imagine we're building a really different future for agriculture and outdoor work that allows us to just change the way we relate to these environments, because the tools are so different now. And so sometimes that's going to require us not assuming that what we build next looks exactly like what came before, which is kind of challenging. And it also requires in the short term that we build things that are familiar enough so that we know how to bridge to whatever that future technology looks like. And I'm curious about every step in that process. And I don't know what 20 years from now is going to look like, but man, it's moving fast right now. So it's kind of hard to imagine what I don't know is coming yet, but what will come. And I've always been drawn to projects that allow me to be kind of on that future edge, and so that's why I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, 20 years is a long time. I mean, think about where we've come in the last couple of years with AI and all of that. And so back to Sarah's question, what would you say is the current adoption rate for the types of solutions that exist now, and what type, size, scale of farmer is adopting them? So that's kind of the, trying to make sure you're serving all sizes and scales of farms.
Definitely. So just speaking purely from the Amiga historically as a product, it's been the right fit for smaller growers. Now that we've merged with Bonsai, we're sort of been put in a position to work not necessarily only with larger machines, but working at many different scales with many different kinds of machines, because farms of all sizes use, ATVs in combinations with gators, with combinations with big tractors to get all the work done. And so I think from an equipment perspective, it has already been a mixed fleet solution, no matter what scale you're at. And I'm really excited about the ability to sort of bring all of those pieces together from an autonomy perspective and make them work well and make them, talk in the same system. And I think that's sort of a scale agnostic question. If you make it affordable enough, then, and you make the form factors work in many different kinds of environments, it can scale up or down, which is kind of a brave new world in agriculture for me. So that's very exciting and a very cool part of what I get to work on a daily basis.
So I think, apart from the machine technology, a lot of people forget about the first tech that came about, which was the digital AgTech, or I guess the more modern, which is, the soil maps and the yield maps, the auto steering, the satellite imagery, all that stuff. Even just for that, I was talking about that with this other group a couple weeks ago for that technology, and the new technology is coming out. There's I think around the 50% adoption rate across the whole US for that type of technology. So there's a lot of adoption, mainly for the digital ag tech sector, like again, the soil maps, the yield maps, the variable rate technologies, and all that stuff. But yeah, so it's really cool that most people or half of the people are adopting digital technology. I think with more accessibility later on, the machinery can also be adapted at a higher scale, like the digital ag tech is. So.
So I'll say for adoption, because we are a different planet in New York and on the East Coast. So we don't have yes, okay, we have the auto steer, do we have the GPS guidance, that kind of technology. But if we're talking weeding technology, not so much. We have 5 carbon robotics laser weeders in New York. We have 2 echo robotics and 1 verdant robotics. And we're ahead of a lot of the states around us. Again, growers are interested, but there's a lot of, we want to know if it's going to work in our system. And again, these are our biggest of our big growers who have adopted it. I am doing work. I have Amiga. I actually have several Amigas, and I have them. And I've got a Weed It sprayer that's designed for use in orchards and vineyards. And I've got it running autonomously in a tech vineyard. I don't have it running autonomously. My colleague, collaborator Terry Bates has got it running in a vineyard, spraying suckers and weeds. We're planning to put a mower on it, and it works great. It works great on our flat vineyard. So we want this technology. We're working with it. Again, a lot of growers, we're still in this kind of inception phase where we're trying to find out where some of the tools and the technology can work in our East Coast system. I want to talk about the future of ag tech, and not so much or the future of ag tech, not so much where I see it going in a broad vision of maybe where I'm afraid it goes or what happens. And I just kind of want to take a page out of our herbicide, experiences. Our use of this chemical technology has led to a lot of herbicide resistance. And anything we do is going to impose a selection pressure on weeds. And so I do love the vision guided technology, the machine learning. Yeah, I think this is cool. I think this has potential, but I'm also afraid if we rely on it, what kind of selection pressure do we put on the weeds? Do we start selecting for species that are crop mimics? What other kind of traits? So weed science tends to be a very reactive discipline. It's like, oh shoot, that happened and now we've got to fix that. And so I want to, be thinking now about what kind of pressures technology is going to put on our weed communities going forward and our production systems. And how, again, like Joanna said, we're going to have a very diverse production environment. So how can we do that economically? How does the technology fit in? Because some of this technology, say we want to, be thinking about the use of more cover cropping, some of this technology may not fit into that cover cropping environment. So we really need to do a lot more research. And, that's on me, and that's me trying to get the grants to do that too. But really, how can we build these systems that are resilient and dynamic and that take advantage of a technology and don't put as much of that selection pressure that we have with our chemical control tools?
I think that's another one of the reasons why what we're doing with the Amiga is so important to me. It's because we're building machines that are designed to work in commercial agriculture and solve problems for growers, not just outdoor work in general, but we're really focused on ag. But part of the way that we get there in terms of the future of agriculture is through partnerships with folks who can develop on our platforms and use them in their own test environments and figure out the next pieces. We're also working with Weed It and mowing, and I would love to have more conversations. We're also figuring out how to work in rocky hillside vineyards with next platforms. We're in this collaborative experience together between the work that you do and the work that we do. And I think We need both in order to come up with real solutions that are going to work for growers. We're not going to be able to know all of that or do all of that on our own. And so what I want to do is create sort of the Amiga that makes it most possible for other people to come build the future of outdoor work with bonsai, because we feel like it's that sort of ecosystem of options that are going to really move agriculture into the future. And we know if we just picked one of those and really focused on it, we wouldn't get there. You know, like there's other folks who are doing that. We try to be the platform that makes it possible for Mauricio to learn, for people to be engaged in workforce development, for researchers to test out new theories, for people to come up with like different robotic solutions, and all of that together, some of which, you know, might end up being like bigger commercial solutions for us in the long term, will be how we get there. And again, if we just picked one very expensive, like $1.5 million machine or something and put all of our eggs in that one basket, we could solve that problem. But man, there are so many more out there in ag, and so many people who are engaged in really interesting, sort of provocative edge work that we want to support. So that's one of the cool parts of my job, is to always be in conversations like this.
Very good. Yeah, Mauricio, I don't know if you have anything to add about specifically some of the innovations that you've identified or helped develop for the Amiga specifically.
No, I mean, most of the things that we've been working on is just the autonomy. I'm just, really interested in how neglected the East Coast seems to be. I did not know that. So that's really interesting. And I hope to be able to help take better technology that can be adapted into that area, because that's a sector that I did not know was there. So yeah. But yeah, most of my work has been with autonomous weeding systems, and just using various different implements like the A knives, the finger weeders, the J knives, the flame weeders, and all that stuff. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and you've touched on this a little bit, but another question we have is, how do you see climate change? And I would add fire to that, and especially in California, since we're kind of a California-centric crowd. Sorry, Lynn. We'll talk about fire. So climate change, fire, labor, and land use shaping the kinds of technology we will need in the coming years. I don't know who wants to start with that one.
I'll start off on labor. The labor. This is a volatile situation. I think we're all understanding labor is going to become more difficult to source. It's going to become more expensive to source, and one thing, when I was in California, and I really hated people with hose in 110-degree weather out in fields. I hate that. I hated seeing that. To me, that is not the best use of the human mind and the human body. I think there are so many jobs in agriculture. There are so many tasks. There are so many better ways that we can, put people to use. That I am very committed to seeing how technology can, take over some of these most difficult jobs, especially if climate change is going to become more extreme. Taking people away from some of those tasks, not to minimize the people or the work they do, but to maximize the human potential. And so I do think that is going to shape this sector. We're constantly going to, I think it is really going to enhance, again, this very site specific precision technology. And how can we make it effective for the biggest of the big, and how can we make it effective for the smallest of the small? how can we have those tools available for the entire spectrum of grower? And the digital ag scientist and I, and we're using, like I said, we're using the Amiga as our platform right now. We understand there are constraints in places where it can and can be used, but what can we build off of these smaller, autonomous tools that can do these jobs? So we can get the smaller grower down in Orange County, as opposed to our biggest processing vegetable grower out in Genesee.
I am again going to speak from my own growing experience that when we had the lightning complex fires, well, a couple different rounds of fires that we dealt with in the Cape Valley, I was out in the field and had crew out in the field, and we had to make choices about how long we were going to be able to spend in the field and whether we were going to privilege harvest or irrigation as a job, because we couldn't spend the time to do both. And the more our environment changes and the more outdoor, farming's fundamentally an outdoor job for most people who do it. Yes, there are controlled growing environments, but for a lot of us, we work outside. And I know in those moments that I'm either risking my own health at times or risking the health of other people in ways that I don't want to. And to have, again, more tools at my disposal to make it possible for me to continue to do the work, to be more effective in the work in the face of those kind of pressures it's important. It's going to be important, I think. I think we're always thinking of it in those terms, but that question really brought that to mind for me, that I probably wouldn't have had to make those trade-offs, lose money in the process just to keep the trees alive. There might have been some other ways to fit the patchwork together. And I think really that's why I work on this technology now. It comes out of feeling like I didn't quite have enough of the resources that I needed to. Are you guys able to hear me? I'm not sure if it's cutting in and out, but I'm seeing videos drop everywhere. You there? Yeah, enough of the resources. Sorry, to start over again. I work on the Amiga because I felt as a grower and a beginning farmer and a farmer of multiple farms that there was always just a little bit of a gap between everything that I probably could have done and even was profitable at times, but I just didn't quite have enough, and I couldn't have hired all the right people for it to ever be enough. And so I think there's some other piece in the system that's missing, and I think it's tools like these. And to even know more about what was happening in that environment as the fire was 1.5 miles away from us and desiccating the trees, to be able to have sensors in the field that are feeding into a system that help me understand how to more intelligently irrigate. That's the future that I sort of imagine for these systems, is we just get better at understanding what's going on. We get better at capturing more data at different times. I know that's kind of a big fantasy dream, but we've got to have the right tools to enable some of that work. And we've got to take some of the pressure off of the people who are in the system, really struggling to hold it all together. And I think that's, there are so many different ways that we need to respond to the moment that we're in, and technology can't be the only way, but I do think it has to be a part of what we do, because we need better tools for what we're facing, because it's an evolving situation we're really being challenged to respond to. So.
Yeah, I think I had a similar experience to John a couple of years ago. In Salinas, there was some wildfires, and you go out and you have we have farmer friends, and we were farmers at the time as well. And it's they're deciding, hey, should we come out and work, or should we lose our product, maybe lose money? And I think if we had the technologies, it'd be a lot more helpful. And then also going into this summer was different. It wasn't as hot, but other summers, it's just been getting hotter and hotter. And there's the issue of okay, you have to stop your workers every hour or 2 hours or something, and pay them for a break. And then those workers, there's also the health conditions that some of them might have, and they can't work outside. And with technology, it would make all of that so much easier. You wouldn't have these workers working under those conditions with the health conditions that they already have, potentially, making them worse. You wouldn't have to put them, in those environments where there's smoke from fires. again, endangering them, just so that you don't lose some money, you know? So it's like, I think these technologies, like Joanna had mentioned, it's could be very helpful. And even in those times when we were doing it, it would have been so much more helpful to have it then. But it's a good thing that we're uh, increasing the research behind it now. Just not even just to help companies make more money, just to help the workers that are out there, um, uh, who are aging. And there's a I think 60,000 labor jobs for agriculture specifically that are left unfilled like in the past couple of years. So it's already a growing problem as well. So yeah.
Yeah, it's worker safety in so many ways could really improve, like the chemical exposure, the stress on your body, the smoke exposure, all the things. So thank you. Okay, one last question, and Mauricio, I'm going to see if you want to take this one on, and then we will hear from anybody else who might have some questions. So what role do you see young people like Farms alumni, like yourself, and other future leaders playing in influencing or creating the future of ag tech? And we talked about a little bit about, how to be competitive in the job market of ag tech, but what kind of influence do you see people like yourself playing in the future?
I think we have a more broad understanding now. Like I've talked to some older folk, and they've mentioned they don't have internships back in their day. They didn't have all these programs that can help them expand their knowledge on ag. Before it was you either know about the business or you know about harvesting, or it was very minimal where you can go out and learn. And now with all these programs, like with farms, you visit small farms, you visit large farms like TNA. You visit educational entities, and you learn from all of them, and you get a more broad understanding of what's going on around you in ag specifically. So I think the young people population now is going to be able to bring a more holistic approach and a more equitable environment into agriculture, and not just be one-sided and biased. Because again, we know a whole lot more about it, and we're exposed to it from a younger age, and have the resources and opportunities to do so. So yeah, I think it'll be a more fair, just, and equitable environment. And obviously, climate friendly, like it's been a trend the past years. So yeah, I think it'd be that.
I have hope for the future. Yay. Joanna or Lynn, anything else to add to that question?
I want to applaud Mauricio and all the students like him. Like they're the ones who are going to bridge the practice and the science. And I think that's critical going forward with the optimization of technology, the design of new technology. Probably people like me, they're flexible, they're new, they have a lot of ideas. I think they're going to take the sector in amazing new ways. They're less constrained than someone like me. I probably don't know what I don't know, and I think they have this ability to see more and do more. And I think they're fabulous. And I think it's just whatever we have to do to give them as many resources as possible to train them and to empower them to take on, the leadership in this whole area.
Yeah, on that note, Joanna, do you want to mention anything about the Farm Robotics Challenge?
Sure. Yeah, we I think a lot of folks here know that Amiga and FarmNG historically, and now Bonsai, have been really involved in supporting the Farm Robotics Challenge. We're in that season right now, and lots of activities around that will be coming up at FIRA. If you're in the general Yolo County area or like within a drive, you should come check out FIRA and see all of the options and see the different Farm Robotics Challenge like award winners and there'll be people from all over the country coming and demonstrating like their technology. But Farm Robotics Challenge is a program that allows diverse teams with different kinds of backgrounds to come together to solve real challenges for real grower or sort of field partner. Anyway, Farm Robotics Challenge is it's a competition that allows teams at the university level, but also at the high school level, for sort of like a different program, to come together and solve real world agricultural challenges, working with field partners and growers. And just, it's incredible. You got to go to the webpage and see some of the crazy projects that people have come up with between field estimation and cone landing and all kinds of mechanical weeding and soil sensing for salinity on the East Coast. And I mean, it's the future is bright when you look at what Farm Robotics Challenge entrants have submitted for consideration. And so if your school is interested in this, if you're a professor or a student, or and you haven't participated before, please reach out to Farm Robotics Challenge or to Bonsai. We have information about how to get involved. So.
Awesome. And we put the Farm Robotics link and the FIRA link in the chat for anybody who's interested in learning more about that. And then Sarah, if you don't mind, would you just unmute and talk to us? I mean, not Sarah, Elizabeth, I'm sorry, about the Tech Expo?
Yeah, definitely. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, great. Yeah, so Elizabeth Bond here with Community Alliance of Family Farmers. We're holding our annual Small Farm Tech Expo on December 2nd at UC Merced this year. Our ECO actually helped highlight the Amiga chapter, R1 in 2023. So I know some of you are familiar with it. But yeah, please come. You can also submit a proposal if you have any technology or any workshop materials that you'd like small farms to have access to. That portal is open until October 19th, and you can find it on our website. And yeah, happy to answer any questions, but we'd love to see folks there who are interested in small farm and tech.
Cool. Any other last minute questions? Please either raise your hand or put them in the chat. And any other ways for our panelists that we can kind of follow your work? Or we'll see you at FIRA. But anything else?
Definitely to see us at FIRA. I'll see you at when.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be at FIRA. I'm coming out. I'm also on Instagram as like specialty crop weed science, I think, like that. I've been a little lax posting because it's been a very big field season, but pictures of our work with carbon robotics, pictures of our Amiga-based spraying, pictures of our work with verdant robotics. That's really pictures of our Monarch tractor trials. That's kind of where my lab is focused. So feel free to follow me there, and since I'm not out in California anymore, see what we're up to.
We're all, of course, like any company, active on socials, active on LinkedIn, Facebook, and we have a website where if you're looking for more information, you can come to there. If you want to talk to me, you can probably get a hold of me through someone on the website. We're not a huge team at this point, and so everyone's pretty connected. Again, I think the best thing to do, which is like this conversation is testament, is sort of like interact with our technology in person. It is like physical AI, you know? And the most important thing is to actually get a controller in your hands and drive it around. So we are all over the country, all over the world, all the time, showing off what we're doing, and love to connect with new people, always, of course, for partner projects or beyond. So please just reach out. We're a friendly crew.
And how can people stay connected to you, Mauricio?
Oh, sorry, I don't have a website, but
Not yet.
but I put my LinkedIn right there. We'll be posting more now that I'm doing a new fellowship and stuff like that, so you guys can stay up to date on my work if you guys are interested. Yeah, I guess LinkedIn would be good. You guys can hit me up through there. Or the school website. They have pictures of me sometimes. So
All right, we're hoping Mauricio is going to get to come up to Pura too, but not sure yet. It's a little
yeah,
bit,
hopefully.
of a trek from Santa Cruz. Any other comments, questions from anyone in the audience? I know you all have great work to share too. So if you wanted to share anything in the chat or unmute yourself, please do. Otherwise, yep.
I want to give Stephanie an opportunity to talk about how the Center for Land-Based Learning is involved in the Farm Robotics Challenge this year. Stephanie,
Yeah.
I'd love
Yep.
to hear that.
Oh yeah, so I have been lucky to take on coordinating. We're doing the lower level per se, but we're facilitating in the North State and Capital Region for the Farms Robotic Academy. So that's just the 7th to community college. So right now we're heavy in the recruitment process of finding schools, literally from like Sacramento to Oregon, from the coast to Nevada, kind of. So yeah, we're just kind of kicking it off, seeing the engagement getting in those younger generations because it is such a trendy topic right now. And the more I'm going to all these like AgTech conferences, it's mind-boggling to me like how this truly is the future of agriculture. So I'm really excited that CLBL gets to kind of have their foot in the door with the Farm Robotics Academy as they're kicking it off. So it should be real fun, real interesting to see how this first year of the pilot program per se goes with the Farm Robotics Academy throughout the state.
and if folks are connected to schools that might be interested, Stephanie, how can they reach you?
I'll drop my email in the chat, but if you know of anybody or if you have students at a school, if you give me a contact, I will send them all the information that I have, and there's a lot of it. And it's also nice because there's $20,000 grants for this first kind of 2-year program to help schools get involved and kind of accessing that, you know, the drones, the robots, all the equipment that's a little hard for them to come by through just their normal budget. So my email is in the chat now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending today. These conversations happen quarterly, and our next one is with our alumni in December. So definitely subscribe to our Eventbrite. Find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Next time, we will be speaking with UC Davis students and future ag leaders, Alexandria Hernandez and Gabriel Okika Palafax. They will be sharing more on their unique journey of the farms program to UC Davis. They will also be sharing more on their recent adventures in Thailand and much more. So I hope you guys can join us then for that conversation. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And I would like to especially thank Julia Thomas for joining me today and being my co-host. Thank you.
And thank you so much to our fabulous panelists. Thank you, Lynn, Joanna, and Mauricio, for sharing all of your expertise and insights. And we look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Have a good evening.